Hello and welcome to the cabin. Today we're going to discuss when is the best time to deer hunt. And we're going to touch on the weather and if the full moons have any effect. We'll discuss the full moon first, or the new moon. First I want to say that what I'm sharing with you is not from some book we read or magazine article. Uh, we we maintain records that go back 50 plus years. And as teenagers, we were taught to record everything: moon, weather, rain, and everything. So, and then what we do is over the years, we have studied patterns. Uh, we've gone into food plots on the ranches at night, full moon, new moon, dark nights. We use night vision stuff. So what we're telling you is based on boots on the ground, I guess you want to call it, patterns. We'll talk about the full moon first. Uh, what we've run into is that a lot of people say, well, the deer graze on a full moon, they go bed down sooner. Some say no, there's nothing to it. What a lot of people aren't taking consideration is deer vision, and I've talked about that in other shows. Deer and their rods and their cones in their eyes, they're designed to see in the dark. They don't need moonlight to be able to graze. Basically, what the full moon is really good for the hunter is if it comes up in the evenings and you're doing an evening hunt and your eyes have adjusted, you can come and leave without worrying about being busted by a deer, because you can actually see what's going on. It's kind of like dust. So that's what it's really good for. But what we've noticed is that if there's high humidity and it's hot, deer move late, they bed down early. It's kind of like you when you're working outside or something. You don't want to be out there in high humidity. You don't want to be out there when it's 99 degrees. Deer the same way. What we've noticed is that, say, deer normally move, or we'll just say 6 o'clock in the evening. In the evenings they go out to get water and food. If it's like 90 degrees and 99, odds are we've seen them don't leave and go to food and water until about 8 o'clock in the evening, and then we've watched where they actually go back to bed down a couple hours earlier than they normally would. So these are factors you need to take in consideration, which leads us into to the next topic, the weather. As I said, the heat, it does create a situation where the deer move later, bed down earlier. But you have to take this, what you need to take in consideration is your area, your state, your region. Right? Here, like in Texas, opening day, normally we have a south wind, and it can be 85 degrees. What you need to do is find out what your area is. You can Google that stuff, and what the temperature is normal in that area. 80 degrees may be completely normal. But if you have a big jump up from, say, let's just say you got 60 degrees during your hunting season and it's 90 degrees, well, the deer are going to be moving a little bit later and they're going to be bedding down a little bit sooner. That's something you need to keep in consideration. But deer do move regardless, because they have to have food. They have to have 6-8 pounds of food every day. Now let's talk about wind. The same thing with wind. You need to find out what is average in your area where you hunt. We had at least in another state, the wind was blowing 50 miles an hour, literally. We almost didn't go. We went, there were deer everywhere. Why? Because the deer were used to it. That's where they were raised. That's just normal for them. So that's something you need to check into. Same thing when it comes to rain. Some areas rains a lot, some areas it really doesn't. typically when a cool front's blowing in and the temperature drops a little bit out of the front and there's a drizzle, what we've seen, and we study patterns. We look at all the records and we study the patterns. There is a little more movement of deer before a cool front if there's a little drizzle. And again, it's the temperature. If that cool front comes in and it's extremely cold for the following day when it blows in, let's say it's 50 degrees or 50, which is normal for you, or let's just say 60 degrees, and it drops into the 20s. That following day, you think, well, the bucks are those are going to be up moving. No, they're bedded down because it's too much of a change. You have to wait to maybe the following day, where the medium jumps up maybe 15 to 20 degrees. Then they're up and they're moving. One of the things that you need to also take in consideration is when is the best time to hunt during the pre-rut. But now with the pre-rut, believe it or not, the evenings are the best. You got to remember, in the early pre-rut, especially for bow hunters, these deer, they're not chasing does. They're not fighting over territory. They're still basically in their summer mode. They get up, depending on the temperature, they get up, they go go get food and water. So you want to be around where there's food and water. Then they head on back in the mornings to bed down. They're like I said, they're in their summer mode. So food and water in the early pre-rut, and the evenings are the best. What about the rut? The rut, everything changes. It's chaos. Okay? What our patterns have shown on our records is that for whatever reason we can't figure it out, but the mornings are the best. The deer, they seem to move, the bucks and does seem to be moving more in the morning and during the day. Now there's this misconception out there that if it's extremely hot, the rut's going to be put off, say peak of the rut, typically let's say around November the 13th. There's a conception that, well, if it's been really hot, the rut's going to move up a couple of weeks. No, that rut's going to occur no matter what. Okay, you may not be seeing a lot of deer during that time. It's because they typically are bedded down with does. And and you really want to hunt the morning regardless, because if you hunt evenings, let's say November the 13th is peak, that 1-2 weeks prior and 2 or 3 weeks after the peak of the rut, that's your prime time. You want to be out there, okay, regardless. And you really don't want to hunt the evenings because you're limiting yourself. You're looking at 2 or 3 hours during prime time. The morning, like I said, we've seen the records we see patterns where there are more deer in the mornings. And on top of that, the last thing you want to do in the evening, if you're doing the evening hunt, is shoot a deer, and then you got to go all through there in the dark, and you're busting bucks and does that are in the area, and they're going to their secondary or third bedding areas. In the morning, you can extend your hunts all day, and I'd advise you to stay in your blind all day during that prime time. But you can extend your hunt way past just a few hours. Now, post-rut, if you've been following this, post-rut, we don't put a whole lot into it. You got to remember, especially 2 or 3 weeks after peak rut, these bucks, they're wore out. They've been running and chasing does. Their feet hurt, their hips hurt. They've lost 25% of their body weight. What they're basically looking for is shelter where they can rest up, build their energy, put fat back on, because the winter's coming, it's going to get cold. So they're going to be more in the thicket area. And they're basically the best setup for the post-rut. Again, it would be just like the pre-rut. You would want to hunt the evenings because naturally during the day the sun will heat up and the evenings are a little bit warmer, and they're going to be going looking for food and water, and it's normally around thickets. And basically also keep in mind when you are hunting the wind. You don't want to be out there if the wind is swirling, because it's throwing your scent everywhere. You just want a steady wind. But again, that post-rut, like I said, you treat it like you did the pre-rut. Hunt the evenings near food and water, more in thickets, because they're looking for areas just to rest up and build their strength back up. Well, I guess that's pretty much does it. I hope this has helped you, and thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.